So basically, you know the economic problem, you know what is economic efficiency. We know that efficiency is using resources or allocating the resource in the best possible way. So what is if we need to know what is efficiency. We went over marginal already. Um, the other thing that we need to understand is productive efficiency. So here, this is what this productive efficiency is also called Pareto efficiency. Allocative efficiency is also called Pareto optimal, and we have dynamic efficiency, point in time versus a period of time. And there's other type of efficiencies such as social efficiency. It says this occurs. So when the services are optimally distributed through an economy and X efficiency or X inefficiency, management makes a firm product produce maximum output with a given amount of product. So this normal, what we're saying here, X efficiency has to do with the CEO. So is the CEO causing the company or making the company produce at its most efficient level? A good example of this is monopoly. In a monopoly, we normally have X inefficiency as the monopoly does not produce at the most efficient point, and we're going to see this later on as we go ahead when it comes to when we look at profit maximization and firms and those things. We will put these things on a graph. We'll put all of these efficiency on a graph, and then we will see that it's not possible for we can't achieve all of these three efficiency. And one of the key question that, so this is a typical question that always comes up also, this efficiency, right? So not only efficiency, but it's tied to this here, the externalities and those things. Um, so the question will ask you like something about government externalities and those things, and basically what should be done, right? So you have to tie together efficiencies and these type of externalities. Where the hell is it? Not nudge. Right, this one with this externalities. So this graph you have to know to explain this graph. This one is actually easy to explain, and from my previous students, they would always choose to explain this thing. So here we're basically explaining subsidy and those things, but we go more in detail. And we again the marginal comes into it, right? So in the lower level, we just said um, taxation, fixed market. If there's like wastage, so the company, let's say, is creating pollution, we should tax the company, right? And this would fix the problem. In A level, we basically look at the marginal of it and see what will actually happen. This is why I say it's very important that you learn marginal. So we're going to come to this later after I go over. So this is what we're saying, right? If you tax it, this would be like the effect on the deadweight loss, right? The monopoly, and then if we impose a tax, we basically reduce the deadweight loss and those things. So all of these things are connected together, and this is normally a question that is asked. So here again, we see allocative efficiency and those type of things coming out in it, right? Market failure, and we have allocative efficiency. So it's connected. You need to be able to especially the productive and allocative efficiency, you need to be able to connect this to the this part, right? The what was this? Brain is not braining. The externalities, right? How to deal with externalities. So let's look at it quickly. So we know what productive efficiency is. Productive efficiency is basically producing at the lowest possible cost. You guys can go all over this. You should be familiar with all of this. It says more specifically, it can be seen that perfect competition leads to necessary condition for productive efficiency. Um, and what we're saying when we look at a company, when we look at profit and those things, again, we're going to go into this, right? How companies achieve productive efficiency. Allocative efficiency is when consumers place on goods reflect the price they're willing to pay equals to the cost of resources used. So the price equals the marginal cost. Another interpretation where resources are allocated to the production of goods and services that society most values. There are two motivations to produce. First, the desire to make the greatest possible profit. Second, firms in competitive market will be forced to produce those products most demanded by consumer. We went over this. We understood what margin was. Let me see. The next thing we need to understand is so fixed costs. It says fixed costs does this should be straightforward. Here overhead comes out. This is a new terminology. So it says fixed costs are those that do not vary without the with output and typical include rents, insurance, depreciation, setup costs, and normal profit. They are also called overheads. Variable costs are costs that vary, so that is straightforward, right? Unit costs, you are we went. This is like the increasing, decreasing thing, right? Normal profit. I think you should be familiar with this. You should be familiar with what is break even. Um, as an economist, we look farther than just sales, total revenue minus cost, and we're more concerned with the opportunity cost. So this is what we call the economic profit, right? If we are to take accounting approach, then one to Greek over. So the example I normally use here is that if you have a business and your business makes 1 million one to Greek in sales and your cost for producing these products was 1 million to Greek, then technically your business is making a profit if you're studying accounting, right? In economics, we say this does not make sense. You should stop doing this business as you could go get a job that pays you 2 million to Greek. So the opportunity cost is the money that you could have been earning, but instead you choose to do a business. So that is what we call the economic profit. The economic profit is basically the regular profit plus the opportunity cost. Um, so it says any rational person would have taken 1 million per month in profit to continue the business. So if a job is paying you 1 million, you have to be making 1 million in profit for you to continue doing the business, or you would stop. This means the business would have to make a minimum in 1 million over cost. This, in this sense, profit is zero. Economic profit, as it is this 1 million profit goes to the owner shareholder or reinvested back in the business. So what we're saying, economic profit is, as I said, the regular profit plus the opportunity cost, right? And this is why we say, sorry, profit can be zero because um, let me see, if you reach 1 million, the 1 million minimum level. So if we look at it, I should have a formula. I don't have. Ah, I didn't put the formula. Right. So the idea is, right, the opportunity, what we're saying here is that the opportunity cost is 1 million also. So if we did here, right, we say that the profit is equal to what? Total revenue minus cost. We would have to add, I wonder if I have it here. We'd have to add one more thing. Let me see, I might have it here. This is the externality one. Right here. Basically, this is what we're saying, right? So originally, total revenue is this, right? So profit is equal to total revenue minus total cost. This is equal to profit. Your profit can be either positive. If it's negative, right? Zero means you break even. What we're saying is economic profit is we need to consider the opportunity cost. So we have total cost, total revenue minus the total cost plus the opportunity cost. This is going to give you the economic profit, right? If we look at an example, so we said the total money that you made is basically, I should probably have put this in brackets to make it make more sense this way. So when I was teaching it the first time, I was typing it directly, so it made sense then. So what are we saying? Your total revenue is 3 million, right? And your total cost is 1.2 million, but if you were working, you could be making 1.8 million. So basically, this is the money that you're giving up for doing a business, right? Where you're only making 1.2 million. So if we look at it from the economic perspective, then yes, of course, your business look like it's making money, um, which is the 1.8 million, right? But then we're saying you could also be making a salary for 1.8 million if you were working. This is just a simple example, right? Um, so the opportunity cost is 1.8 million. So basically, this is your how should I say, your normal cost plus your opportunity cost, and we then see economic profit is equal to zero, right? Um, so that's the what we're trying to say here in this thing. And under, it might sound like weird or something, but and this, all of this is building up to when we go to looking at productive efficiency and allocative efficiency in the next section, where why companies will never produce at the allocative efficient point. They will always produce at an inefficient point. And the reason, one of the reason being is that they normally, um, if the company is allocative efficient, they are not making this one, the abnormal profit. So abnormal profit is basically when your economic profit is greater than zero. So the opportunity, the money you're making from the business is greater than the opportunity cost. Says this is the real reason why people go into business. Of course, you will do a business if it's paying you more money than a job. Why would you do a job when you can make more money selling or making a product? The reverse happens, right? Why would you do a business if a job can pay you more money than the business can pay you? It says, however, we know that as competition increases, the abnormal profit will decrease back to zero in a highly competitive market. So a long, long time ago, when you started learning economics in the IGCSE level, you saw, you learn, right, basically this here, right? This graph right here, and where we had the marginal cost, or even in AS level, we have seen this, the marginal cost, the average total cost, this is average variable cost, and then this is the demand curve, right? Um, at this point, we're saying this, so this is a perfect competitive market. At this point here, basically, what we see right here at this point, where they all intersect, this is what we're saying, this is equal to zero. The economic profit is equal to zero. So this is a perfect competitive market, right? This doesn't exist in reality. Um, And as we go forward, we're going to see the type of system that exists. So this is never achievable, but it's a good concept to teach in theory as it's easy to understand. So that's what we're saying here, right? That due to competition, right? So in a perfect competitive market, there's high competition. So you can't increase your price. You sell exactly the same product. There's no barrier to entry and those things. So the economic profit is always zero. If you reach 1 million minimum level, then everything you make over 1 million becomes the abnormal profit, right? It says if you start making less than 1 million, then it's better to go to work and get a salary. So this is showing those concepts. Here we have the marginal cost, the average cost, and the demand curve here is equal to the average revenue in this situation. When we go here, chapter 7, and we learn about firm, we're going to learn why the average revenue is also the demand curve. We saw it here also, right? That in the average revenue here is equal to the marginal revenue is also equal to the demand curve. So we see in this situation, price times quantity is equal to revenue, right? So this is your price, this is your quantity. So the area here is basically your total revenue. Um, this is just a basic example. This is your cost. So um, how we can know this is your cost? It's basically where this broken line intersects the average cost curve. That is where your cost is gonna be. Um, so we know anything below this point, uh, as I said, so where the price intersects the demand curve or the average revenue times the quantity, if we just draw this, we calculate this area, that would give us our total revenue. Where this same broken line intersects the average cost curve, we just, if we calculate this area, that is your total cost. And then we know that profit is basically um, cost minus revenue minus cost, right? So in this situation, we have abnormal profit, right? Why we have abnormal profit is because the average revenue is not equal to the marginal cost or the average cost, as we see in the perfect market situation, what we saw here. So in this situation, we say that profit is equal to zero because the cost is the same as the revenue. So if it's costing 50 cents to produce this product here, we're also selling it for 50 cents. That's the price, right? We see peas here also. We're selling it for 50 cents. So the average revenue is also 50 cents. The marginal revenue is also 50 cents. And the demand is whatever quantity they're demanding at 50 cents. So the demand curve is also this perfect elastic demand curve. So in this case, because the cost is equal to the we can also say the average cost is equal to all of this, right? The profit is zero. But what we're seeing in this situation, they're not equal, right? Here we see the average revenue is higher than the average cost and the marginal cost. So basically, this company is making an abnormal profit, which we said is the company is making more than the opportunity cost to doing that business. Here's an example that shows us all of them together. It says less competition in a given market is likely to lead to higher prices and the possible for higher abnormal profit. So this, why is it giving so much trouble? This situation is an example of an imperfect market where the in the drawing that I showed you, that's a perfect competitive market. So this is a imperfect market, which means if there's an imperfect market, there can be discrimination. If there's discrimination, we can charge a higher price, which means we can make a lot of profit. So if we try to, when we look at the productive efficiency and the allocative efficiency, right, this is where it's coming out already. We'll come back to it later. We see that what the company is gonna, what we have to understand is that the company will produce. So just from the graph perspective, right, when we go later, we're gonna look at why the company will produce at this point. But the company actually produces where the marginal revenue intersects the marginal cost. So if we find that point here on this graph, we see it's this point here, right? So where the marginal cost intersects the marginal revenue, this is the point that they're going to produce. And then you just go straight up. If you go straight up, wherever this line meets the average revenue, that is going to be the price also that you're going to sell. So where the marginal revenue intersects the marginal cost, this will determine the quantity. We see if we go down, this is the quantity that you will sell. And what price will we sell it? You just go straight up, and wherever it meets the average revenue curve, that's the price that we're going to sell it at. So if we are to put that into a graph and we try to understand what is happening, the um how should I say, mm, where the company should be producing, right? We say that basically here, just based, this one is showing you when we put it all together, we're showing that the company can have different marginal revenue curve and different average revenue curve. And what we're seeing is that the more it says less competition in a given market means we can charge higher price, right? So we see the company could be here, but of course, if there's less competition, the company could choose to charge you a higher price going up, right? There's the less competition it is, the higher the price will be. And again, this all has to do with the cost of producing. So again, we look at the same thing where it intersects the marginal cost. This is the point where the price is going to be, and this is also the point where the quantity is going to be. So this is just showing you different situation, how the average revenue and marginal revenue changes as there's less competition in the market. Um, this is just graphing the same thing. It's showing us this is a super or the abnormal profit. And at this point is, so what are we looking at here? Where the marginal cost and the marginal revenue intersect, this is what we call profit maximization. So if you want to make the most profit for your business, you just sell at this is why the companies sell at this point, right? Why do companies choose to sell at this point? It's because it maximizes the profit. So where the marginal cost intersects the marginal revenue, the equivalent price on the average revenue is curve is going to give you the maximum profit you can make. If the company wants to increase revenue, then they should sell where the marginal revenue is equal to zero. And that is equate on point eight here, right? So we see in this situation, if we try to put them together, point A in this case is a little bit lower than the original one, right? Um, so here we says what firms achieve maximum profit where the marginal revenue is equal to the marginal cost. Um, maximum profit, maximum revenue is achieved where marginal revenue is equal to zero. This is also the same level of output where the PED is equal to 1, namely the midpoint of the aggregate demand curve. So at this point here, it's the middle of the aggregate demand curve where the marginal revenue is equal to 0. The price elasticity of demand is also 1. Sales maximization means achieving the highest possible sales volume. So the average total cost is equal to the average revenue. This situation here, where the average total cost is equal to the average revenue. So if we put all of this together, right? So I guess maybe like, did I draw this one? No, I don't think I drew this one. So this is what we have. This is, if you draw your total revenue curve, this is what we're looking at. And this was where, when we were looking, when we see this graph here, come on, this is what we're looking at. At this point here, basically the tangent line is 0, right? So if we look at that, oh, disappear. If we look at that situation here, this is what we're saying. We're saying that here is the where the marginal cost is equal to the marginal revenue, right? So this is the profit maximization. And we see what, where if we take the tangent here and the tangent of this line of the total cost curve also, we see what they're parallel, right? The broken lines are parallel. So what are we looking? Here's the break-even point, normal break-even. We see that the marginal cost is basically this. Again, when we find margin, we're finding change, right? So the marginal cost is actually the slope of the total cost curve. And again, when we went over marginal, I said it's just the first derivative, right? And the first derivative actually is change. And so when we do the first derivative, or when we find marginal, what we're basically finding is the change of whatever variable we're finding. So if we do marginal revenue, it's the slope of the total revenue. If we do marginal cost, it's the slope of the marginal cost. Here is applying the efficiency. So we see that productive efficiency basically comes out at this point. So productive efficiency is where the marginal cost equals the average total cost. What do we see? The profit maximization point is here, right? Where the marginal cost intersects the marginal revenue. So if the profit maximization occurs before the productive efficiency, no company will be productive efficient. They will all choose to produce where they make the most profit, which is at this point, right? Um, and basically, productive efficiency, we have learned this from the PPC. Point Y is being productive efficiency. Um, so productive efficiency also means where the average total cost equals the marginal cost. So productive efficiency simply means producing at the cheapest possible cost. The example I normally use for this is plastic. So plastic is really cheap, right? Why is plastic so cheap? Because we can produce it at the lowest possible cost. Is it really good that we can produce plastic this cheap? Not really for the environment, right? But we have been able to achieve producing plastic efficiently. So that is what productive efficiency means. Of course, they would not, a lot of things are not produced at the most efficient point, the productive efficient point, at the cheapest point, because the profit falls before it. So I'm gonna stop there for today. I think